after U.S. President Trump demanded that China cancel its retaliatory tariffs or else he would impose an additional 50% tariff. The official Chinese media account published an article saying that China had prepared 6 major measures to deal with the U.S. tariff measures. But it still failed to prevent the U.S.'s 104% tariff on China from taking effect on time. Beijing announced last week that it would impose a 34% retaliatory tariff on goods imported from the United States in response to the Trump administration's tariff measures. President Trump posted on the social platform Truth Social that China must withdraw its decision to increase tariffs before April 8th, otherwise he would impose more severe punitive measures. He emphasized, China must immediately withdraw its 34% retaliatory tariffs, otherwise the United States will launch a strong response. Negotiations with Beijing will be completely suspended, and we will turn to a new round of dialogue with other countries willing to cooperate. The White House confirmed to AFP that if the new round of tariffs takes effect as scheduled, combined with previous policies, the total tariff rate of the United States on Chinese goods this year will reach 104%. The U.S. Treasury Department confirmed late Tuesday that a 104% tariff on Chinese imports would take effect after midnight on Wednesday Eastern Time. Immediately after the above moves, the Chinese stock market was like a roller coaster. Due to the impact of the U.S. retaliatory tariff storm, the Chinese stock market suffered heavy losses. Notably, the Shanghai Composite Index fell below the 3,100 mark, setting a record for the past 5 years, the largest drop in a day. The Hang Seng Index also fell 13.22%, the largest drop since 1997. For this reason, there was a cry from stock investors on the Chinese internet. China's 6 major countermeasures to counter U.S. tariffs. The official Chinese media Xinhua News Agency's official account Niu Tanqin published an article on the 8th, saying that in the face of the U.S. threat to further impose a 50% tariff on China, China does not cause trouble, but is not afraid of trouble. The article said that they had received some latest news, and China had prepared at least 6 major moves to deal with U.S. tariff measures. 1. Substantially increased tariffs on agricultural products such as soybeans and sorghum from the United States. 2. In view of the frequent outbreaks of avian influenza in the United States, consider banning the import of U.S. poultry. 3. Suspend Sino-U.S. fentanyl cooperation. 4. Take countermeasures in the service trade field, including restricting U.S. companies from participating in procurement and restricting business cooperation such as legal consulting. The tariffs implemented by the U.S. government will bring a serious crisis to the country's service exports, which currently have a huge surplus. 5. Reduce or ban the import of American movies. 6. Investigate the benefits of U.S. companies' intellectual property rights in China. The reason why the CCP chooses to confront the United States. Gong Zishen, a well-known Canadian media person, said that these countermeasures of the CCP are actually not very effective. For example, banning the import of American movies is meaningless to Trump because Hollywood is the base of the Democratic Party and is against Trump. Banning American movies will only hurt those who oppose Trump. Gong Zishen pointed out that the investigation of the benefits of American companies' intellectual property in China will only scare away American capital and anger Trump and further impose tariffs. He believes that the CCP's countermeasures against the United States and the continuous escalation of conflicts with the other party show that it cares about the U.S. tariff measures. It is worried that the other party's policies make China look too weak. As a dictatorship, it absolutely cannot show a weak attitude in front of its people. Otherwise, its regime will be unstable and it will not be able to convince the public. The governments of rational democratic countries will not retaliate against the United States with tariffs because they know that this will cause losses to their countries and people. On the contrary, dictatorships will take retaliatory measures and confront the United States because they do not want to appear too weak and they don't care what price the people will pay for it. Gong Zishen pointed out that, in fact, the CCP knows that the escalation of the Sino-U.S. trade war will eventually affect its ability to govern because its finances will become increasingly tight. Therefore, they are still actively looking for ways to negotiate with the United States in private. China's manufacturing industry will become the biggest victim. Although the CCP officials have made tough statements and said they are confident in fighting against the U.S.'s heavy tax policies, Chinese manufacturers are complaining bitterly. Mr. Chen, who used to work in the export manufacturing industry in the Pearl River Delta of Guangdong, said in an interview with Radio Free Asia that if the U.S. implements a 104% tariff on China, the global supply chain may suffer another severe impact, and it will pose a serious threat to China's already weak economic recovery. Mr. Chen said, "I have been engaged in export management for foreign-funded enterprises for more than 10 years. Export production requires a stable exchange rate, tariff, and economic policy environment. If the policy and exchange rate change like a roller coaster, normal production will not be possible. Production is not stock speculation, it is not buying in the morning and selling in the evening. And China's advantage in the past few decades of development is manufacturing. Faced with such a turbulent international economic and political environment, the most damaged is China's manufacturing industry." Zhou Ning, an e-commerce seller in Jiangxi, believes that the current business environment in China has fallen into the most difficult period since the reform and opening up. He said that the United States' cancellation of the tax-free amount for small packages has seriously impacted the living space of millions of small and medium-sized sellers on the mainland. Zhou Ning said, "The United States has increased tariffs on e-commerce packages, resulting in the inability to reduce costs, and these products are difficult to sell overseas. The profits of Chinese e-commerce companies are entirely based on large volumes. This is not just me, but all online stores." He predicted that not only will China see a new round of corporate bankruptcies, but foreign-funded and Taiwanese companies will also be hard to escape the impact. He said, "China's manufacturing industry is always squeezing prices. Whether it is enterprises or e-commerce, they are extremely involuted and compete on price. China exports products overseas through this price advantage. If the United States increases tariffs and eliminates these advantages, then it will lose its competitiveness." Jiangsu scholar Mr. Kai pointed out that China's internal circulation economy is facing failure, and if it loses the U.S. market, the external circulation will also be in trouble, and the economic environment may continue to deteriorate. He said that ordinary people are the most affected by tariffs. Mr. Kai said that judging from the numbers, the Sino-US trade game is heading towards an unprecedented, extreme confrontation. If the 104% tariff proposed by Trump becomes a reality, it will reshape the global trade pattern, not only posing a challenge to China's industrial chain, but also impacting the global consumer goods market. In China, the most direct pressure is on manufacturing workers, e-commerce merchants, and small and medium-sized enterprises. Although the Chinese Communist Party took steps to rescue the market, outside sentiment remained pessimistic. William Shin, chairman of Chunshan Pujiang Investment Management, said Beijing's support is far from enough to offset the trade war's impact, as companies struggle with orders, pricing, and retaining customers. "Looking for bargains now is like catching a falling knife," he said. "I'll hold cash until things stabilize." From September 2024 to year-end, the People's Bank of China introduced structural tools like reserve requirement and interest rate cuts. One tool allowed financial firms to use assets like stock ETFs and CSI 300 stocks as collateral to obtain liquid assets, but funds could only go into the stock market. The second tool enabled 21 financial institutions to lend to listed companies and major shareholders for stock repurchases. These moves once pushed the CSI 300 index up 40% in 2 weeks. But as investors waited for clearer policies, the market cooled. By early 2025, signs of disillusionment emerged. As of January 14th, the Shanghai and Shenzhen markets had fallen around 6%, ranking among the world's worst performers. Li Hengqing, an economist at the Institute for Information and Strategy, told overseas Chinese media that the recent stock market rebound was engineered by the CCP, similar to the 2015 policy bull market. Its aim is to lure around 150 trillion yuan in personal savings into the stock market. But it may end like the 2015 crash,